Well, last weekend was the 87th Academy Awards, and as always, it was a beautiful night for pageantry and for the celebration of cinema. Just look at Neil Patrick Harris's opening number from that night. It celebrated so many amazing films, and who can forget such films as Fargo, Back to the Future, Indiana Jones, Raging Bull, E.T. The Oscars, that's who. They all lost. Let's see how it is, Oscars. You love your movies that are all about crippling depression and struggling with diseases and the tragedies of war, and that's fine, but you just shoo away all other genres. Sci-fi, comedy, action, all that. You just go, oh, that's kid stuff. Put that over there in the corner. That's not going to win anything. But then all of a sudden, when you have to look like you're relevant and like you still matter, well then. Now, I don't want to bash the Oscars too much. I do think that they nominate a lot of great films every single year. But every single year, there's also a ton of really amazing films that either lose or don't even get nominated. And sometimes it's just because the votes don't go the right way, but a lot of other times it's just simply because it doesn't fit the criteria for what the Oscars have approved to be Oscar-worthy films. So today on Thorgi's 10, I'm giving you my top 10 Best Picture snubs of all time. And before anybody in the comments points out, yes, I do see the irony in the fact that I had to probably leave a couple of films off my list because they couldn't fit into the top 10, and this is a top 10 about the films that couldn't fit into the Oscars top 10. I get that. I totally understand the irony behind all this. Now, before we begin, let me just point out, as always, this is just my opinion. Everybody's entitled to their own. I am not in any way, shape, or form saying that this is law and that these are facts. No, these are just the top 10 films that I felt should have won or at least been nominated for the Best Picture category. And let me also point out that this is indeed only for the Best Picture category. If I were to include the Best Acting categories or the Screenwriting categories or any of the other categories, this would be a top 100 list, okay? So I'm just doing Best Pictures here. And when it comes to my definition of snub, sometimes these are films that should have been nominated. Maybe they shouldn't have won, but they should have at least been nominated. Or sometimes they were films that were nominated and should have won and didn't. Alright, let's get into it. At number 10, this is kind of an honorary spot. From the 14th Annual Academy Awards, this is the one that makes perfect sense. This was the one that we just have to mention. Let's go ahead and get it out of the way. Citizen Kane. Citizen Kane has been listed not once, but twice by the American Film Institute as the #1 film of all time, and it had a major impact on the rest of cinema that came after it. However, it lost. It got nominated, but didn't win. Alright, this is a film that has been talked about. If you've ever taken a film course, they have forced you to watch this thing probably 4 or 5 times. Everybody knows the impact of this film. I don't need to go into it. This is a hindsight category. This is a, yeah, it probably should have won. No surprise here. Alright, let's move on. Number 9, from the 69th Annual Academy Awards, we have Fargo. Fargo was an amazing drama/comedy. It blended those two things together so perfectly. It really is what made us stand up and notice the Coen brothers. And the #1 reason why I'm putting it on here as a snub is because it lost to The English Patient, a film that was so overrated, Seinfeld dedicated an entire episode to why it was so overrated.
It's too long. Quit telling your stupid story about the stupid desert and just die already. Die!
Number 8. This one might come as a surprise to everyone, but from the 66th Annual Academy Awards, Groundhog Day. Groundhog Day to me proves that the Oscars really do not care about comedies. If you're going to be a comedy, you have to also be a massive crushing drama on top of that comedy for them to even look at you. Because Groundhog Day, to me, is one of the best written comedies of all time. It didn't get nominated for anything at the Academy Awards. Not for Bill Murray's amazing acting job, not for the fantastic script that was incredibly imaginative and one of the most inventive new films out there that I have seen. And of course, it didn't get nominated for Best Picture. Now granted, at that year, if it had been nominated for Best Picture, it would have gone up against Schindler's List, and yes, Schindler's List definitely should have won that year. But you could have thrown Groundhog Day a nomination, man! Now, at number 7, 2001: Space Odyssey. Just like how Groundhog Day proved to me that the Oscars don't really care about comedy, 2001 kind of proved to me they don't really care about sci-fi either, alright? Now, I'll be the first to admit, I think 2001 is a little bit overrated. I'm not as big a fan of that as everyone else is. I still think it's an amazing film. I still think that it was mind-blowing and innovative. I think it was a very important film. And it should have gotten nominated. Oliver won that year. This didn't even get nominated. And here's the cherry on top. It got nominated for Best Directing and Best Writing. And typically if you get nominated in both those categories, you're pretty much a shoo-in for a nomination, and yet still, no nomination. At number 6, we have The Big Lebowski. Everybody has talked long and hard about how fantastic The Big Lebowski is. It is one of the most unique comedies out there. The production on it was just mind-blowing. The performances are some of the best I've seen in a comedy from that decade. And it didn't even get nominated. Such a witty comedy, and it should have been nominated in the 71st Annual Academy Awards, but it wasn't. And you know what won? Shakespeare in Love, alright? And I don't want to bash any films on this, but Shakespeare in Love, people regret that one so much, the Oscars would take it back if they could. Okay, so I've already talked about how the Academy clearly doesn't care about comedy, it doesn't care about sci-fi, it really doesn't care about horror. And at the number 5 slot, I have The Shining. The Shining is one of the best horror films ever made. It truly proves how great of a filmmaker Stanley Kubrick is, even more than 2001: A Space Odyssey, in my opinion. And Jack Nicholson, his performance as the dad going insane in that film, that had so many levels. You want to learn to be an actor, just watch all the ranges he goes through in that film. It is incredible. And this film didn't get a single nomination. Not for acting, not for directing, not even for cinematography. That house alone should have gotten a cinematography nomination, and it especially didn't get a nomination for Best Picture. So if you're a horror film, it doesn't matter how good you are. Unless you got Anthony Hopkins in there eating people, you ain't getting a nomination. At number 4, we have Jurassic Park. Now a lot of people might be saying, okay, well Jurassic Park had some special effects in there, but what did it have beyond that? Well, beyond that, it also had amazing characters, it had excellent dialogue. The dialogue in that is far wittier than people give credit for, and it had amazing character moments, like the little bits where you watch Sam Neill grow to love these kids that he's protecting, or the Flea Circus story. The Flea Circus story gives you so much backstory on the character of John Hammond. It gives you everything that you need to know about why this guy would build a dinosaur park, alright? But you can't ignore the special effects in that film. The special effects, yes, they truly are stunning, and movies are what dreams are made of. We've always heard that expression, and the Oscars have to have some pretty depressing dreams if these are the films that they're nominating. Alright? The fact that this movie made audiences all around the world believe dinosaurs are alive, dinosaurs are walking the earth, that deserves a nomination in my opinion. And speaking of films that really ignited imaginations and audience goers all around the world, at number 3, The Empire Strikes Back. Alright, now Star Wars at least got nominated. The Empire Strikes Back, which pretty much everybody agrees is the superior film, that didn't get anything. It got no nomination for Best Picture, and this is the one where it amped its game up. Alright, Star Wars was a magical feast. It was, wow, this is impressive, I can't believe they're doing this. Kind of like why Jurassic Park should have been nominated. Empire Strikes Back is the one in which they went, okay, we can do all of that and have a kick-ass story in there too, alright? Those two things combined should have gotten a nomination. At number 2, let's just consider this the Martin Scorsese category, alright? This one is dedicated to all those Martin Scorsese films that should have won and for some reason didn't. Because not only did he make some truly amazing films like Raging Bull and Goodfellas, but those films lost to far less superior films such as Ordinary People and Dances with Wolves. That's right, Goodfellas lost to Dances with Wolves. Do I need to say anything more about this one? Alright, most of the ones that I have listed so far, they came from the 90s. Alright, a couple of them were from the 60s, maybe late 80s, but the majority of the films I have listed came from that 90s generation. So you might be thinking, oh wow, the 90s were really screwed up when it came to nominating films. For the number 1, we're going all the way back, alright? This has always been a problem. The Oscars have always snubbed amazing films, and for the number 1, I'm going back to the 6th ever Academy Awards for King Kong, which didn't even get nominated, alright? King Kong, I mentioned how films like Jurassic Park and Star Wars in 2001 blew people's minds and made them realize what cinema could really do. King Kong was that one that just really stood out and made people go, oh wow, this is something incredible. Films are truly something where we can just take our imagination and do what we want with it. Didn't even get a nomination, alright? And here's the films that did get nominated. Oh, that one's okay. Yeah, alright. I think I've heard of that one. Now, I'm not saying any of those were bad films, but when you think about all those and you think about the impact that King Kong had on cinema, the importance that it has to this medium alone, that to me proves why it is the #1 biggest snub in Oscar history. Alright, I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. If you want to see more lists from me, then please hit that subscribe button. If you have your own personal top 10 list of Oscar snubs, or even just one snub you want to mention, leave it in the comments below. Lego Movie. Alright, thank you very much. Share this video if you like it. I appreciate every single time that someone does that. Thank you so much, and come back next time.